Hispano.
Should sit on the other side. So
Present.
Mr. Vasquez.
How are you?
Mr. Holland. Ms. Weinberg.
Here.
Chair Gutierrez.
Yeah, you sit
Vice
with
Chair
them.
Perez. We have a quorum.
Great. Could you also please call roll of the people that are here
Oh, if
present?
everyone in the audience
Thank
could introduce themselves for the record. We'll start with Mario.
Mario Diaz with the Miami-Dade Expressway Authority.
Helen Cordero from MDX.
Maria Luisa Nadia Lobo, MDX.
Marie Schaefer, MDX.
Francine Steelman, MDX.
Carlos Alvar, MDX.
Javier Rodriguez with MDX.
Jairo Ocampo, MDX.
Ronaldo Cortez, EAC Consulting.
Albert Sosa, HNTV Consulting Company. Daniel Menendez, MDX.
Rick Brooks with EAC Consulting.
Andrew Pierce with EAC Consulting.
Bernie.
Bernie.
Bernie Escobar,
MDX. Oscar Taranjo, Pro Transport.
John Sloan, Sloan Transportation.
I'm Jorge Rovirosa with the Port of Miami Terminal Operating Company in Florida, Stevedore, Port of Miami.
Armando Verona, Seaboard Marine.
Thank you, everybody, for taking your time to be with us this morning. Mr. Chair, the declarations of voting conflict.
Do any of the board members have any conflicts they want to report?
No.
No conflict.
Madam Chair, if I may, and Mr. Council and board members, I would like to ask the chair to consider a change in the order of the agenda. Based on the conversations that we're going to have today, I would like to ask the board to move the public comment, item number 3, to after we have our discussion items. A lot of the folks that have introduced themselves are here to speak on a particular policy that we're going to discuss today, and I would rather the committee first discuss it openly, and then we can hear from the community after the committee has decided, how to proceed or what issues they have. And that's for your consideration, Madam Chair.
Thank you for reading my mind. If the committee's okay with that, let's go ahead and do that. So then I would like to see if we get a motion to approve the summary minutes, please.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. I just want to go on the record of saying that the agenda did go out with one of the items being an action item. And I asked that staff change it to a discussion item because I think it's very important that we understand exactly why this is happening now. Maybe it should have happened before. Whatever the reason being, that it's important that we understand why it's happening. So I would like to turn it over to Mr. Rodriguez to give us a thorough explanation.
Sure. And what I'm going to do is, in discussing this item, I'm going to hand out some sheets, and I'm going to use it as a guide. So, it's representative of the policy of what the. I'll give this to you. Madam Chair, committee members, we bring before you a proposed policy on a multi-axle frequency discount. This is a policy that would address the remaining 2% of the traffic that uses our expressway system. Back in March of last year, 2013, the board adopted a discount program for our commuters, our 2-axle vehicles. But before I get into the details of it, let me go back in time and discuss what the goals of the authority and the mission of the authority has been for a number of years. Since 2007, when we created our master plan for MDX, one of our pillars was to promote economic health between our ports. At that time, we had a blue ribbon committee. We actually tried to develop a truck-only lane between our airport and seaport. We looked at 836 or State Road 112 to develop that truck-only lane. We went through an analysis. We actually hired the Reasons Foundation, Robert Poole, and it concluded that it did not make sense financially. The cost outweighed the investment. At that time, we went to talk to a then Port Director, Chuck Towsley, and we started talking to him about different ideas on how we can promote more movement between our ports. We already knew that there was going to be a port tunnel. We knew the port tunnel, and as an official at the Department of Transportation, when the tunnel was being developed, I went on record and said that the tunnel by itself was not the silver bullet to solve all of our problems as far as freight movement. That the tunnel was just a piece of a much bigger program that had to include 395, projects on 836, and on State Road 112. So knowing that the tunnel was proposed, we started talking to Mr. Towsley, ideas of moving trucks to off-peak, appointment schedules, fixing the gates at the port. Nothing really happened. There was a change in director with Bill Johnson, and at the time there was a change in chairmanship here, and I think Mr. Lasarte was chair, and he asked Mr. Holland to lead the effort, and we went over to see Bill Johnson. And Mr. Johnson was very receptive of anything we could do to promote, the movement, safe and efficient movement of freight between the West Dade Cargo Area Airport Seaport. Again, the idea was, let's try and change the industry. Let's change the hours of operation. Let's see if we can have appointments and so on and so forth. From that, we started talking to the Freight Advisory Committee at the MPO. We actually had a person appointed, which was a vacancy for many years. So out of the Freight Advisory Committee, we actually developed a project on 836 at 87th Avenue to directly affect the movement of trucks and access of trucks to our expressway. And that is in our work program and moving forward. But to make a very long story short, nothing on the appointment side, nothing on changing the way the industry works has actually taken place. So November 15th, we went live with our open road tolling. And what we noticed, and it doesn't take rocket science to notice, is that a lot of the trucks that were using our expressway, because it's the most efficient way to get from one place to another, were avoiding the highway, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So our proposal here is to start looking at, number one, how do we get the trucks back on the highway so they can make more round trips and be more efficient? It's the safest way, it's the shortest way to get from the port to the seaport, using the tunnel, using the expressway system, the interstate, and the highways. Number two is, how can MDX be more efficient in its operation? So what we're proposing to you is that, number one, the multi-axle who uses our facilities, the rates would be capped at 3 axles rather than going per axle above 3. So instead of charging 2 axles plus 3, 4, 5, 6, that we would cap it at 3 under one condition. And this is where MDX gets something. The one condition is that they're SunPass customers. They have to get a SunPass. And the reason we say that is, for those of you that were at the Operations Committee on Tuesday, we heard Steve Andriuk, our toll operations, our Deputy Director for Toll Operations. One of the biggest issues we're having with multi-axles who don't have SunPass is trying to find out who they are. Bills are sent to the trailer, the tractor owners are different. It's become an operational inefficiency for us. So we're willing to do this discount for the multi-axle community so long as they become SunPass customers. And that's a big if. We had a conversation with the industry and we put this on the table, and they said they would help us to make sure that their fleets, their customers, the independent truckers would get their SunPass. For our standpoint, it's going to reduce our operating costs, and that's a benefit to us. So I put that in front of you for consideration. What I handed out is a representative example of what particular trips could be on our expressway system. And I'm not going to make it that complicated because it isn't that complicated. If you just take a look at State Road 112, and I use State Road 112 because it's one of the heavier truck routes. Prior to November 15th that we did ORT, a round trip for a 5-axle vehicle was $4 because they paid it going east but didn't pay it going west. On November 15th, when we went live with our open road tolling, that same round trip increased from $4 to $7. With this proposal that we have in front of you, that same trip would now be $2.80. So it would encourage the more frequent use of the expressway, which is more efficient, it's more operationally efficient, and it's better for the authority and for the economy of the community. So that's a representative. Our proposal is that it applies to the entire MDX system. We don't control the turnpike or the managed lanes or the other expressways, but that this would apply on all of our expressways. We also did a representative example on 924, which is the Gratigny, which directly leads to the Medley area, and you can see what that would mean financially. It's almost half. And we didn't do anything going live on November 15th at Gratigny. Those were the toll rates that existed since 2010. So I put that in front of you for your consideration. We're here to answer any questions. We have gotten a sign-off from bond counsel that this meets the intent of the discount program from a frequency standpoint. So it's been written in a manner that is consistent with our trust indenture. We have looked at what the financial impact to the authority would be by implementing this. If you go back to the discount program that we approved last year, the range of the impact to MDX was anywhere between $3.5 and $4.5 million per CDM Smith. And we disclosed that to the bondholders. With this one, the impact to MDX, if you were just to say what is the discount between what they're paying today and what would be paid based on this policy, it's anywhere between $1.5 and $2.5 million. But what is also needs to be considered is that by reducing that price, you're going to attract more of the trucks to stay on the highway. So when you balance both of those out, the impacts to the authority's finances are negligible. So from that perspective, it makes all the sense in the world to promote the economic well-being of the community and to move freight safely on our facility. So I will stop there. And
So I'm understanding it as a win-win, but I'd like to open it up for discussion with this committee.
I guess I support the policy, but I do have some concerns based on some of the discussions we had some years ago, and I think there's still some stuff that needs to be done. I think part of the discussion we had with truck discount some years ago was trying to see what we could do to get the trucks off of the highways during peak morning hours and rush hours when people leave work, so you can fit more pedestrian cars in to move them. And one of the discussions we had with Bill Johnson on this was, it's a great idea, but most of the warehouse facilities out Doral and westward pretty much close 5 or 6 o'clock, and most of them mom and pop kind of operations. And so how do you coordinate all of that? I still think at some point we need to deal with the freight industry to try to see how we extend those hours of those facilities to be able to accommodate trucks off peak hours, especially with the volume of traffic that's probably going to flow through the seaport with the panoramic ships and all the other stuff that'll be coming in. And if we have this discount here, which seems to be a deep discount, how do we discount them even later to go off peak?
we've had, Mr. Holland, we actually had a conversation with the Port of Miami, Kevin Linsky, and they're looking at, they've made some improvements to their gates, even though they're not great yet. They're looking at actually an appointment program, and I'm not an expert in it. They came to talk to us about, you know, the models for the expressways, and we pointed them towards Florida International University that has a model for all of our expressways. They mirror what DOT has done with the Sun Guide system. So the port would be able to take whatever they're thinking of and model it with the help of MDX and FDOT and the county to see what effects it would have. As far as a deeper discount, I think the issue there, Mr. Holland, is that it is in the best interest of the truck industry to make as many round trips. If you're going to get on the roadway at 7 o'clock in the morning when the highway is congested, you're going to fight that traffic. If you get on the roadway at 10 o'clock when it's less congested, you can probably do 2 or 3 round trips, and you don't have to worry about the price of the trip as it pertains to tolls. Now, that can only work, and they'll tell you, if the port and the gate system is all in place. Because what happens now, and I talked to the port operators, where they have to shut down the port because the trucks actually back up into the port tunnel to get through the gates at particular times of the day. And it's not necessarily early in the morning. It could be at any time. It's just how long it takes them to get through that particular gate system. So it is a more complex issue that needs to be resolved, Rob. I mean, Mr. Holland. Set Rob.
Ms. Weinberg, something you want to say?
No, I've heard a win-win as well. Just concerned to make sure that our system will be fully operational and it will work so that we don't have, I know we have some tweaks that need to be done, and I wouldn't want this to come backfire. So the industry's going to get all upset because they get some kind of collection notice because so I just want to make sure that we're.
Another part of this equation is that, and we've spoken with the industry for years about our work program, a lot of what we're putting in place, whether it's on 836-28, which is widening 836 between Red Road and the river, and then widening and fixing 836 from the river to 95, and then the subsequent 395 is going to help their operations because it eliminates the friction that occurs on the highway, which then slows all the traffic down. So, adding another ramp from 836 to go north on 995 is significant improvement for access into and out of the CBD or port, for that matter, the central business district. Sorry.
I know you mentioned. I'm sorry. I know you mentioned it was before Bill Johnson's time, but when was the study done for the
Chuck Top? It was
dedicated.
We actually did it during Ms. Gutierrez's tenure as chair back in 2007, 2008. We looked at a truck only. Yeah, we looked at a truck only dedicated lane, and what came out of that was actually the Reasons Foundation saying it doesn't make sense for trucks only. What actually makes sense is managed lanes, where you can actually control traffic flow. So all of that was tied. Well, all of that tied together. But it originally started with our mission to connect the airport and the seaport more efficiently using 836 or 112, and we tried to look at a truck only lane.
Oh, it was longer.
No. A lot of our master plan, Ms. Weinberg, started from 2007, that we started looking at really how we move forward the community. Prior to that, we were trying to get, the extension done. We were trying to get our feet on the ground, fix the existing system, whatever we could. Our revenues were minimal prior to 2007. I think I was looking at the numbers. Our annual revenues in 2007 was $40 million. Prior to that, there was years that it was $15 million. With that, the fact that the authority was able to do so much on that shoestring was amazing. Now, once we did the extension and we started closing the system, now you're seeing a robust program of improvements on our expressways.
A lot of cones everywhere.
Unfortunately.
As far as I'm concerned, this is long overdue. This is a very important policy that we need to adopt. We need to stop thinking that by sitting in this boardroom that we can change an industry. Okay, we're not here to change industry. We don't know what their business model is, and we don't know when they need to get there. As it is, all roads are congested. We need to minimize the impact that takes them back. We need to help people move forward, and that's what our roads should be. What I want to know is, what can we do, okay, for those truckers that since we went up in the toll rate, what can we do from that point on and establish an amnesty program? So that way anybody that has been impacted, that sits down, that gives us a call, that we sit down and we negotiate. Because I think that's important. This is minimal days from November 15 that you went up. What can we do?
To be honest with you,
for that
Madam Chair,
impact?
to be honest with you, Madam Chair, I don't know. I would have to go back and find out.
We need to sit down and we need to
research
figure
it,
that out.
But I can't give you an answer because I really don't know. I have to look at all the potential ramifications that has and how it would.
We need to sit down and we need to figure this out because, quite frankly, when you go in and you multiply it, it's a lot of money. And as it is, their margins are slim. Everybody here knows I bring containers in, I import, I understand what the truckers go into. I understand they hate to come to my facility. And you know why? Because it's difficult to come in and it takes them forever to get it in and then to get it out. So, and I know that what they need to do is to do at least 3 or 4 turns. And if the traffic minimizes how many times they can get in and out of the port. So imagine if it's easy for them to use our expressway, yet we're hampering them with such a ticket, okay? It's a major impact. So we need to see how we can reduce and move it better. right?
I don't have an answer, like I said, I'll have to get back to you on that specifically.
What you all are recommending, and I really would, I hate to do this to you, Javier, but I would like you to go road by road and talk about the discount, what the difference will be for them, so it is on record.
Sure.
And that the industry understands what we're promoting and what we're advocating for.
If you look at what I gave you in front of you here.
I also have two things. He's asking to speak over there.
No, let them talk.
No, Bernie wanted.
No,
That's
just-
that.
I'm sorry, I didn't see.
No, I was just saying.
I'm
that I was
not,
Oh, okay.
paying attention to public comment. I'm
Yeah.
just wanting us to have all our discussion first so they know where we're coming from also. May save them some breath.
I'll walk you through the 5 expressways because it's not just for 836 and 112. So if you look at the 836 current toll system as of November 15th, a 5-axle vehicle that would get on at 137th and go all the way to the I-95 and back, which that's not a lot of trips, that's not representative, but we looked at the entire highway. Okay, if a 5-axle vehicle did that entire trip, round trip, it would be $19.20. It would be $9.60 eastbound, $9.60 westbound. These are SunPass rates. Okay, with our proposal capping it at 3 axles, that same trip going eastbound would be $4.80. Going westbound would be $4.80. The round trip would be $9.60.
So almost half,
It's almost half. Yeah.
50%.
What we did on 112, which is what I explained, currently with the current toll system, the round trip is $3 each way, $3.50 each way, $7 round trip. With the proposal, the round trip would be $2.80, $1.40 each way, capped at 3 axles. On 874 and 878, which is the Don Shula and the Snapper Creek, if you're going to do the entire round trip, currently it's $4. The proposal is that it gets 50%, it's $2. Okay, because it'd be capped at the 3-axle rate. And on 924, which is the Gratigny, currently the round trip is $8, and the proposal is that it goes down to $4.
Another 50%.
Okay.
Committee, is there any other discussion before I turn it over for public comments?
Question.
No, I wanted to know, is it written, when would, if adopted by committee, I know that we would have to move it into an action item, when would it become effective?
What I wrote in the policy, which is attached, is the specific requirements, which says commencing December 10th, multi-axle vehicles that have a valid SunPass account will be charged the maximum 3-axle rate on all of the MDX expressways. To ensure that the rate applies to the multi-axle vehicle, and this is where the specific requirement is, the SunPass account must be in good standing with a license plate registered to that account and at the time of the transaction. And the account holder must have no outstanding unpaid tolls, which is something that I can look at with our staff to address your question, which is the amnesty piece. Okay, multi-axle vehicles who meet these specific requirements will automatically be charged. This policy shall become effective on the date the board adopts it. So as of December 10th, you will be able to. The board meeting is Tuesday night, and starting on December 10th, which would be midnight that evening, this can go into effect.
I have a question, please. What could we do to expedite them getting the SunPasses if they do not already have one?
I will let them speak to that, but we're willing to work with them and go to their yards, speak at their meetings. We've got the SunPasses, which we made available to them. We'll make available to them. We'll actually have our technical staff help them put it on the windshield, because one of the big issues is where you put it on the shield so it actually captures it. We're willing to work with them. We have plenty of sticker tags.
And staff too.
And we have the staff to help us, so we will make it happen.
I agree with you. I think we need to be very proactive in going to them and getting this going.
Our goal was to get a higher penetration of SunPass, and we're putting our money where our mouth is to attract that in this particular industry. So that's what we're doing.
I would like to say, I feel sad that this wasn't done before.
And I'm going to echo something that Shelley just said. We can't wait for them to come to us. We need to go to them, and we need to work with industry to identify them all and send the message and give them that SunPass. We can't wait for this to happen whenever it happens. We need to be active because we need to move people on this road.
I think we've incentivized it to occur quickly.
I think that's very important, and I'm putting it in bold. If committee
In
allows.
revising the policy or looking at the dollars and ensuring that we will be okay, how do we arrive at the 3-axle cap?
The 3-axle cap is a recognition, from my perspective, that a truck is heavier than a regular vehicle. If you look at the majority of the trucks, and I looked at the statistics of all the different axle counts that we have on our highways and what that represents. And the reason we picked a 3 and not 4 is because we wanted to capture as many of the heavier vehicles. See, there are vehicles, there's trucks, and I'll let them speak, because there are vehicles that unloaded are 3 axles, but then when they take a load, actually lower the 4th axle, so they're penalized for loading, which is actually doing business. What we're saying is, even if you load, you're still going to get paid the 3. On the 5-axle vehicle, the reason we pick 3 is the cab, the front, typically has 3 axles. So what we're saying is we're going to charge you for the cab, we're not going to charge you for the trailer. Again, if it's to promote the movement of goods and to keep our economy moving, then that was the
That's what you're
reason we
doing.
picked
That's
it.
business.
That's what we need to do.
If you can identify yourself before you speak, just for the
Well,
record.
my name is John Salome. I own Salome Transportation. And first of all, I wanted to thank you all for giving us a positive input and your positive telling us that you're approving this. This is really helping us out. We've just been experiences from day one that this took place, tremendous delays through the highways, and it's affecting our productivity. And we've had discussion with our drivers. What can we do? They said nothing. We got to continue the path that we're doing, and we just see their turn times are 35 to 40 minutes longer than previous. And to saying what you were saying before, you guys want to keep the truckers off the highways during the peak hours. Well, by these gentlemen using the Sun Pass, it can do that because we're going to be done earlier with our deliveries more efficiently, not utilizing that 5 o'clock hour. The guys are probably on their way home like everybody else that gets off at 5 o'clock. So I think it's great. I really appreciate it. And, we're ready just to move forward and get these Sun Passes on our drivers' trucks and bring the information to them. I've mentioned it slightly to the crew, and they're ready to go. So I think that you guys will have a support. I'm speaking for my company, and we have a pretty good positive outlook on the guys moving forward.
I have a question on policy, because regardless whether we have a discount policy or not, using the Sun Pass has always been an incentive. Why would your fleets not have, why would your truckers not be interested in having already had it? And do you know also how many do and do not already have Sun Pass?
I'd say probably about, for my fleet, just from asking around, I'd say probably about 96% of my guys already have a Sun Pass, but since this took place, I would say probably it's very frequent that a guy will use the expressway to pay for the toll. It's just not happening. It hasn't been happening. Again, I'd say the high percentage has been going the back roads, taking any road they can that's not tolled. So we've been feeling the impact of that already.
So we on the roads.
Yeah.
If I may, and I think I mentioned it to the industry, the other reason we want to promote the Sun Pass is Florida, not just MDX, Florida. Sun Pass has made a big push to be interoperable regionally. And we, a few months back, announced that we were interoperable with North Carolina. We recently became interoperable with Georgia, and we're working with South Carolina, Louisiana, and eventually Texas and Oklahoma. So I mentioned that to the group because if you have the Sun Pass, then you don't have to worry about having multiple, tags for different areas in the region. Okay, so.
Yeah, if I'm allowed,
Sure.
I'm Jorge Rovirosa. I'm with the Port of Miami Terminal Operating Company, one of the 3 terminals at the port. And Florida stevedoring, we do stevedoring of ships, both cargo and cruise. Been around here for 53 years, so we know a little bit about the history and what has transgressed in our community. First of all, I want to thank both chair ladies for your innovative solution the policies that you're looking at. This industry, which is the trucking industry, is probably the most battered industry we have in the transportation logistic link. As you all know, being in transportation is key for economic development. And most of our economic development in this county is really related to international trade, commerce, and tourism. So what is being done here, I think it's not only historic, but I think it's long overdue, and I salute you for it. I've been in discussions with Javier for many years, going back to when Chuck Towsley was the port director. We talked a little bit about the terminals and some of the backups, and I just would like to say, yes, we did experience some backups when we didn't have the technology in place that we do have today. And I can tell you, as far as my company's concerned, Palmtock, we've invested highly in probably the most state-of-the-art terminal operating system in South Florida. And my colleagues at Seaboard Marines, gentleman sitting to my right, also has been doing a great job in terms of their terminal. And they do move quite a bit of containers through the road. So I just want to thank you. I think it's long overdue. I think that, as some of my trucking colleagues have mentioned before, this is a no-brainer for the truckers. I think it's going to bring more truckers into the expressway system. It will allow for more turnaround times. And if you've ever had anything to do with the trucking business, you know turnaround is key. The more turnaround a trucker makes, the more money he puts in his pocket. If they don't do those turnaround, the next thing that's going to happen, they're going to be knocking on our doors. You know, we had several trucking strikes here many years ago because of the pay. Therefore, the more money they make, the happier they are. Everybody's happy because it's a win-win, as you well said. So I want to thank you for that. One other comment, Robert, you mentioned your concern about Panama Canal. And if you remember through some of the correspondence on some of the other issues that you and I dealt with, the majority of the cargo that would impact our port in terms of additional volume with the expected opening of the canal would be cargo that would move on rail, because most of that cargo is going to go to the southeast, talking the state of Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Alabama. Miami is one of the three only ports on the East Coast that is authorized to 50 feet. That project is well underway. We've invested as a port community over $3 billion in infrastructure there. I'm sure you've heard that from somebody from the port, and we're moving forward on that, and we're preparing for that. But that will move by rail. The market in South Florida is what it is. According to the latest statistics that I got from the port, I think we winded up doing 875,000 TEU in the fiscal year, which I think closed September 30th for the seaport. So I hope that answers your questions or any concerns that you may have of additional on-the-road traffic.
Well, I think it wasn't just on the road traffic. What we were trying to do was come up with a way that would accommodate more turnaround for the trucking industry.
Right.
And we were thinking maybe if we took you kind of off peak and gave you more rotations that way, or even extended the hours of the warehousing. Yeah. So it was always with the intent of how do we get these truckers to turn around.
No, I understand. That's a conversation that we had.
Yeah.
And my comment to Javier at the time, I said, look, I'd love for the warehouses to be open.
Yeah.
Okay, but if they're not open, I'm going to have men at the port twiddling their thumbs, costing
right, because you're thinking
upward of
what the
$50 an hour.
truckers can do because you're looking at your road, but you're not thinking, wait a second, as a business, you're then asking me to stay open till 10 o'clock in the evening. Wait a second, I can't do that. So you understand you're affecting others. You have to just...
Yeah, that's why I think we were hoping that we could have gotten even some of the warehouse folk in some of the discussion to see what worked for them too. So it was all about it. The whole thing was how do we generate more traffic actually on the highway, but to maximize the use of the highway all the way around. So I'm actually glad to see this here as a policy and what it would do to get you guys on the road and move.
Well, I know these folks at Seaboard, they do a lot of night moves because they have an operation behind the airport on the other side of, near Okeechobee, right? And they do a lot of overnight, nightly moves. So it's a 24/7, 24-hour operation.
That's right.
Did you want to say something?
No, do you welcome this?
Absolutely.
I like the
And I can
smiles.
report that,
I love having smiles in the audience.
And I can report that 100% of our truckers, and it's about 150 of them, are all SunPass customers.
That's good.
And I would tell you, if you want, we'd be happy at Palm Talk to have your representative there. We go on the lines. Who needs a Sun Pass? We can do it there.
Make it happen.
Oh, it is going
Okay, so that's
It is
available
gonna
to you.
Perfect, thank you.
Question on for the industry for this to be a real incentive. I never actually gave thought to trucks not being on the highway because it just makes no time-wise sense for me. And most everybody knows I worked for the tunnel project and I did all the community presentations. People always asked, is the tunnel just for the truckers? No, the tunnel is not just for the truckers, it's open to the general public. But trucks are mandated to utilize the tunnel because the only reason we build in this thing is to get the trucks off of downtown streets, Miami, and get them to have direct access to the seaport, etc. So that was always my lines. So they're using the tunnel because they've been mandated to do so. They're not mandated to use the highway system. They're trying to save a few pennies here and there, clogging up the streets. I'm going to advocate a little for the streets of our community, and also because we want everybody on our highway system. Do you see this as a real incentive? I know you're saying you like it, you'll love it. Is this enough of a change in the pocket in your truckers' perspective, in your conversations with them, that they're really gonna jump on our highway system based on this, giving themselves a mandate to get off the streets on the public streets, endangering the public, making potholes on the streets, smogging up the streets. Get on high, get elevated, get on the highway, get fast, get turned around, and go. Because you're now saving 50%. In some cases, I think it was like 65% we did. So,
What's less wear and tear on their trucks? I've had this discussion
also,
with my guys during the safety meeting and letting them, get their input. Says we'd like to get on the highway because it's the clutch, it's their leg. That's a heavy clutch. Dealing with the traffic, the stop and go. There's more chances and the fuel, and more chances of an incident happening, on the stop and go situation. So, you got your traffic light cameras you got to deal with, and there's just a lot of different scenarios. So it is for our guys a no-brainer. The tunnel is a wonderful thing. There's no traffic lights from 836 from I-95. You're on the tunnel. You're in the port. So it's really a wonderful thing. This would just be like the icing on the cake to keep our guys as they were before, and probably even a little more now. It's a good incentive.
Great. Any other comments?
No, I want to thank you all. We're all in support of it.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
see, now I'm excited.
So
Thank you.
I'm going to hand my gavel over to the chair, and I'm going to make a motion to move this to an action.
Very good. Then I'm gonna second it.
Give me my gavel.
You got it back.
Don't throw it.
All those in favor of making this policy action item so we can vote on it, so it could go to the board? I'm in favor.
I'll move to make it that. Oh,
It's already been
It's already
It's been moved.
Second.
Just say aye.
this sounds over here running my mouth over here. I'm trying not to be totally out of.
He told him to keep you busy so you wouldn't jump on this. Okay?
So all those in favor? Unanimous, we're moving this to an action item. Now that it's an action item,
So move.
we'll move it as an action item.
I'd like to move it to adopt it.
Second.
Accept it as is.
Second. Did you just?
Third it. Unanimous again. So this will go to the board
on Tuesday.
on Tuesday. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Thank
We
you, guys.
understand, and as we say, let's move forward together.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Thanks again. Take care. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna move to item B, review of public involvement policy. Now, before I move,
Stickers made though.
right, let's
NDX
move.
rolls on their trucks. And
Right.
ask them.
You know?
NDX rolls.
Bumper sticker.
And they're so happy.
I'll tell you one of
Trade
the things.
logistics is the number one employer in the county.
I will tell you, one of the conversations we had with the truckers, and, you know, their business is trucking, but they service a lot of our, you know, businesses in commerce in South Florida. And the Chamber of Commerce has always been a huge supporter of the Expressway Authority because of what our mission is to move people and goods safely and efficiently. And this is going to strengthen it. And we actually asked them that we would like to go to different of the chamber events and show how not only are we doing it from the top, but we're doing it from the bottom because it's our mission, our goal, our existence is to move the people in this community safely and efficiently. Okay? So they were on board with that.
It's a happy day for all of us.
Do you second that, Robert?
Second.
All right.
Then it's a happy day.
Exactly.
Okay. So let's talk about the review of the public involvement policy.
Yes, Madam Chair, before we start, and I had this conversation with you, so I will do this before. Last time we met in November, it was our goal, it was our recommendation to hold workshops to address the various policies. What we have in front of you is it's not a workshop, this is a committee meeting. These are two policies that we propose some cleanup on. We have not held a workshop yet. We hope to hold a workshop very soon. I think the biggest issue as far as workshop and
Soon define as next year, right?
you know,
It appears
Next
that
year,
way.
January,
you
February.
know, Madam Chair, and
Just
both
in
Madam
case,
Chairs.
We're gonna know.
Both Madam Chairs.
Yeah,
I
well.
think the biggest issue that we have to address from a policy standpoint is the procurement policy. And Helen and I have discussed this. We need to take a look at the procurement policy, update it, address the concerns that have been expressed at the board the last few times. And it will be a workshop because it's not just the policy and planning committee that need to be involved, but all the board members. That way there's total. Are we going to have zero tolerance or some tolerance? Are we going to have, you know, the ability to fix certain minor irregularities or not? That is the topic by itself of a complete. As far as the other policies, there's all the engineering ones. I was talking to the chairwoman. I was saying, you know, I put myself now in the shoes of the public because I've gotten hundreds of calls. And they want to know where our policies are on the website. So I point them to where it is on the website, and they press it, and they're all there. Every single thing you see in this book is on our website. But general public doesn't understand what active traffic management means. General public doesn't understand what SWAT policy meant, even though it's gone now. So one of the conversations that I had with Chair Fano was, maybe one of the conversations we need to have at workshop is, these mean something to us, but can you group them so they mean something to the community? Like if the community wants to know what our policies are financially, then we have a financial policy. Under it, we can have subsets A through E. It doesn't matter, but the public knows that they pushed out. Same thing with communications. You hit communications, it can have everything there. Same thing with engineering or work program. You would hit it there. That's, I think, from me being a public person, looking at it from a public standpoint, I think it would make it easier for the public to find. Because I'll tell you, they go through it, and you know, but where do I find your policy? Yeah, where do I find your policy on this? How do I find it? Why did you guys do a non-discrimination and anti-harassment policy independently from your regular, you know, business practices at MDX? You know, all that kind of stuff. We want to fix it all up.
Well, that why is because it's that important.
I know, I know. But I'm just saying general questions that you get from folks out of the community. People that aren't, it's not even general public, it's other governments, people who have tried to audit us and stuff like that. These things mean a lot to us, but if we can group them to make it mean something to the community, then I think it would be easier for them to find things.
But isn't that
Easier.
very similar to what the chair mentioned she wanted to do with some of the updates on the policy? So I
Yes.
think it all be done the same.
Yes, it just hasn't moved forward.
It hasn't moved forward. Okay. So what we have in front of you, and Mario, if you want to talk about the public involvement, these are recommended cleanup of the policy. Both of them we're putting in front of you for recommended. Again, it's a discussion item. It's a discussion, and really what we wanted to find out was, how do you feel about this policy? Is there any additional things that we want to have? And I'll turn it over to Mario now.
Sure, thank you.
There you go.
Basically what we did was we looked at the various practices that we're currently employing and how that related to the policy. As with any of our public meetings, especially with going through last year with the toll rate policy, we always usually tend to have more than just one meeting. We also had a webinar hearing where we had interaction from the public through the internet a couple different times within this. I think we had about 3 or 4 within a year's time frame, but that wasn't reflected in the board's policy. So all we did was kind of clean it up a little bit, defined some of the verbiage within the policy a little bit clearer in a layman's terminology to make it reflected. That's the intent of it. There was, we didn't look at this to make any substantial changes to it, just to reflect our current practice and to reflect that webinars are a vital tool, and that we do get participation through that as a public meeting as well. The other attached is the electronic media communications policy. It was recently adopted a year ago. I don't really have any changes for this policy, but I put this together because I figured that these were, as the example that you were looking for, Ms. Chair, was to group these together, and it makes sense to group all of this communication together. So it's just for a discussion for you to see some of the recommendations on the public involvement, to update the policy to practice, and to maybe just group it with the electronic media and just have one communication policy.
Thank you, Mario. And I certainly appreciate the hard work that you did on this, and I think it's a starting point for us to take to the workshop that we will do on general communications. So as a discussion item, I don't know if you all have any discussion. Otherwise, I'll move on. Question.
On social media, where are we present currently?
You mean which
platforms?
Platforms where we have a Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
And who monitors that?
I monitor it on a daily basis, and I do have Tasha Cunningham assisting me, and she's with our marketing firm, MGS.
But what we don't do is we don't get into a conversation between these mediums,
right,
which is not truly the way you should use the mediums, but it's from a public agency. You don't want to get into that back and forth.
Right. So we disperse information about meetings, facts about MDX. When we see conversations happening on like Twitter, for example, where we see a lot of misinformation going out, we'll just start issuing, for example, did you know MDX over the last X amount of years paid 30% of all contracts to small and local businesses? Not directly engaging it with anyone, but trying to at least start establishing facts within the universe, so that if someone actually comes on, they're like, we keep talking about MDX, and they go onto our Twitter page, like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, we pay for all this on gas taxes. And then they see the post where it says MDX doesn't receive any gas tax, property tax, any sales tax. So it's just trying to push out the factual information of our agency through the various mediums, so that it's another point of reference for someone. And we always try to link it back to our website so that they can get the detail of everything from our website.
Mario, I have consistently advocated for educational output. So I think that's a good start. Thank you.
When there are complaints, do we at least say, call here? I mean, we can't get into a resolution.
I will admit, it really depends on what the complaint is. If it's, I haven't been able to get a hold of someone, or I have questions on my invoicing, we will reach out and say, email us here so we can resolve the issue. If it's a complaint of, using inappropriate language and they just don't like MDX, it's not something I engage in, because there you start getting into a debate, and that's not the purpose of our accounts.
Yeah, from a public involvement, from a public information, from a communication standpoint, some of the biggest issues we've been dealing with since we went live is who we are as an agency. People still look at us, Miami-Dade Expressway Authority, as a subset of Miami-Dade County government. And that what we're doing with the tolls, and I get the emails, is a roundabout way to fill budget holes. And we try to explain it as much as we can. We try to engage to explain, but there comes a point that it's just not going to go away. What I've asked Mario to do, and what I've asked a lot of the team is, you know what? Yeah, our corporate name, we exist as the Miami-Dade Expressway Authority, but let's start using MDX. Just say MDX, because I think there's a connotation. There's people that are out there that are using the roadways infrequent, and most of the big complainers are infrequent users that just found out that there was tolls on 836. Well, if you haven't been around, but they're the ones that will then get on and say we're part of Miami-Dade County's government, and they'll start writing letters, and they'll make phone calls, and they'll send me emails. I've asked Mario, let's start using MDX. To communicate, let's start using MDX. Get away from the Miami-Dade, for corporate, our legal documents, our bond, all that always has to say Miami-Dade Expressway Authority. But let's go towards, and that's just, I put it out in front of you. You guys give me a reaction, because I don't know how to separate, the fact that we are not a corporate entity under Miami-Dade County, period. I don't know what else to tell people, because they don't believe us. They don't believe us. They believe we are part of that government, and that what we do is a way of, that we're like an airport or like the seaport type thing.
Perception. Sometimes reality.
I think it's hard to utilize our MDX. It's on the highways.
It's
anyway.
interesting. What I was telling Mario is that worldwide we're viewed as MDX.
Yeah.
People don't even know what MDX stands for, other than we're MDX, they know we're Miami, and that's it. But locally, we're Miami-Dade Expressway Authority, and people connect that to Miami-Dade County government.
With the Miami Direct Expressway.
I have a comment on what you're saying. I like the use of MDX. That's what people know us by. It doesn't even matter that they fully understand what it is we do and what a vision is and what our model is. What we need to worry about is that we are doing what we set out and agreed to do. That we are complying with our vision. That we are delivering the jobs. We're not here to be advocating, hey, know who we are, and we are those guys that are building these roads, and by the way, we charge you a toll. That's not what our business should be, and that's not the kind of money we should be spending in delivering. We are not a corporation. We're not in the top 500 that they need to know who we are. What we need to know is that we are delivering the programs in our budget, and that we give the best customer service that we possibly can to our total customers. That's what we should be all about, nothing else.
Okay, so I asked to add on the communication with board members, just because I want to have a conversation with committee. I think it's important that board members be apprised of things that are happening. Sometimes, we find out after the fact. I'm not saying that we want to micromanage, or at least I don't. I have plenty of things to do in my job, my real job. But I think it's important.
What do you mean? This is not a real job?
The one,
Wait a second.
the one that feeds my children.
Oh, okay. You mean your paying job?
Right.
This is a real job.
Right.
There's a
right.
lot of
My
liability
paying
here.
job. Thank you. So I just would like to ask staff to be a little more cognizant of creating awareness for the board members, because sometimes we get caught out there in the community and something happens and we get embarrassed, and I just don't think that that's fair to us in this job. And that was why I put that on here. I don't know if you all have any comments.
No, I agree. I think we need to define how many times, how often, and how it comes to us, the information. But I think it's very important. Just because you know what's going on doesn't mean we know what's going on. Even the public meetings, even when you're out in a community, that you're talking about a particular program that's coming, because a job is happening, whenever you're doing the P&Es. We don't know when those things are happening. I think that on a weekly basis, we should be receiving this type highlights of what's going on. So that way we know, because if we just happen to be in that area and we want to stop by, we can. Doesn't mean we have to, but at least that we know. If you're having a press conference, that you might not call it a press conference, you might call it something else, that we as board members know that it's happening, that there is something that is going on with members of the press, and that you should all be aware that it's happening, especially your chair and your executive team. Right? I think so.
I would just caution, so I'm assuming, we'll be having email blasts. That's an easy way to get information out. Let the board be keenly aware we don't get into a reply all, because we tend to do that already for meetings, and having been in a real city council where Florida Sunshine Law really rains down on you, whenever I see things begin with the reply all, I literally cringe.
You need to deliver those messages with a BCC.
The highlights will come from me, the emails will come from me, and again, Madam Chair, I apologize for what happened this week. I'll say it publicly. It shouldn't have happened, it did, and I apologize. With that said, I think it's a great idea to have a highlights, because we do have a lot of things going on, especially with the work program going out. We have a lot of procurements going out, and not only that, and I'll tell you as board members here, and Mr. Gonzalez, welcome, the scrutiny that we are going to be under, that we've always been under, but it'll be elevated.
Oh no, it's super important.
And you got to be aware of it. And from all issues, and I'm very happy that now Mr. Zaldivar is with us, because it'll help us go through this process. But the scrutiny is great, and we need to keep you abreast of any issues that might affect you, because they're all over. We have people monitoring everything, and when they can't take a shot at the toll, they take a shot at the board member. When they can't take a shot at the board member, they'll take a shot at the product. If they can't take the shot at the product, they'll take a shot at the vendor, and it's continuous.
I think important, if I may, two very important things that need to be included in these highlights, and you don't have to make it extensive.
No.
You just have to let us know there is a meeting, a public hearing in such and such place, reference this particular job. This RFP is going out on blank. It publishes on blank page, which means it establishes a cone of silence. So then we know that if somebody is calling us, because mind you, people consultants call us, and then all of a sudden we weren't even afraid. Did this thing already come out or
Madam Chair,
not?
you brought a really good point, because we do that. We send out the public record. We send out but by consolidating it weekly, I can list the projects that are active and highlight next to it cone of silence.
Exactly.
That way you have one place to look at when in doubt.
I received a call from a consultant. I can talk to you because I'm not under the cone of silence. Well, I had to rack my brain. Are we or aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
So it would help us. This is all to make things better and to be more transparent and more open and more understanding. The same way, I would also like to request, you're saying you're out there, you all have your arms of receiving information. If something is going on out there in reference to a board member or the board, that you contact us also. Because sometimes we find out things by accident. Happened to me this week. Just happenstance, I found something out.
Mm-hmm.
So if you all, just so that the communication is open. Right. It's really important that we feel that we have enough understanding of what's going on, that we're protected, so that we don't say something wrong in the wrong environment, in the wrong platform. It's again about being transparent. You with staff, with board also.
We'll do that.
Two things. Can I just ask you to please be sure you check with legal counsel on these communications to them? I mean, I'm all for obtaining information, but there might be items that are on the agenda. It's a very fine line with Florida Public Records Law So before we just start blasting information to a BCC or
that's
not,
that's why I wanted to
Yeah.
keep it to
Double check.
media,
Yeah.
media,
media-
public
Not
hearings,
actions that are-
and actions that pertain to the work program.
Right, not-
Meaning there's a particular RFP that's going out.
Right.
It's publishes. Maintain it to that because there's other
Yeah.
communication that
that has
doesn't
to happen.
belong there.
And
No,
my-
but it could be by
my
telephone.
second point has to do with that. I don't want the public record to reflect that board members don't know when Cono Silences are because, or at least when an item is going to go on Cono Silence, we do get that email from our attorney.
Yeah.
So I just want the public to know that. Now I'm totally for having a little cheat sheet, a summary sheet.
Right.
Like, okay, these 3 items, because then once I see the notice, these items on Cono Silence, I might forget 3 weeks later. I mean, granted, I'd rather not talk to anybody about anything, but the cheat sheet is fine, but just public know that we do get notified when
No,
our
not that
items
we
are
did it,
on
and I'm sorry,
Cono
let me
Silence.
clarify, not that we do not, but that it is there as a point of reference, because we all have other lives and other jobs, and sometimes don't remember.
And when we wish we had a Cono Silence in some issues at work. I don't want to talk about that.
Okay, so announcement, we have a meeting coming up right now.
We have Intergovernmental and Public Communications Committee now at
11, yeah.
Well, it was at 11. We'll start immediately at the conclusion of this meeting. And then we have our board meeting on the 9th. And for the record, for the information, maybe you've read it, maybe you haven't, Secretary Prasad announced his resignation. He'll be leaving the state. His last day will be January 2nd, 2015.
My birthday. I'll forever remember that he left on the 2nd.
He and I spoke yesterday. There's a
Because
number
of my birthday.
there's
Let
a
me
number-
clarify that.
There's a number of issues that we've been working with the state on that he pledged that they're going to continue working on it and they're committed to seeing it through. So just wanted to let everybody know they don't have a successor in mind. They haven't named an interim. I don't think it'll happen for a little bit. I don't know when.
Oh, they
it'll
have
happen.
people in line.
Yeah.
Of
There's a
course they
bunch
have
of
people
work.
in
There's a
line.
bunch
We're
of
talking
people in
about
line.
politics at its best.
Right. I've heard the rumors as well. So, but there hasn't been an official announcement yet on that. Okay.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
board members,
Motion to
committee
adjourn?
members.
Second.
Thank you, great meeting.